In order to become free, you have to forgive everyone, every single person. Everyone who failed you, everyone who betrayed you, everyone who hurt you, everyone who knew better and did it anyway. The only way to truly let go of the past and to move on is to forgive. Now, forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It doesn't mean allowing these people back into your life. It does not mean saying, yeah, I deserved it. It's saying, I felt a lot of pain and grief and suffering, and this person harmed me, and I forgive them because I choose to move on. However, on this journey, I have found that there is one person who is much harder to forgive than everyone else, and that's yourself. And in some ways, it is the most important person to forgive, yet it is the person we hold to the highest standards and have the hardest time forgiving. Because when it comes down to it, you can understand why someone else might have hurt you. They were immature, they were hurt themselves, they were repeating their trauma, they didn't know what they were doing, or they were scared or incapable of loving you in the way that you needed. You can write a story for them that allows you to forgive them more easily once you get to that place. But when it comes to yourself, there is this feeling of, I should have known better. If I really deserved better, why did I stay? Why did I tolerate that? Why did I ignore that red flag? And on this journey, you're to a version of yourself who knows better. So when you look back, it's a lot easier to say, oh, why didn't I just leave? And the thing that's different about forgiving yourself than forgiving every other person is you have to still live with yourself. You are the only person you will be with for the rest of your life, guaranteed. That's why it is the most important to forgive yourself, but also sometimes the most difficult. So today I'm going to talk about what forgiveness really is, how to let go of the past while remembering the triggers, remembering the red flags, and not carrying that into the future, while understanding that everything happened exactly as it had to happen in order for you to be where you are right now. I'm going to talk about how to forgive yourself, as well as how to forgive everyone else in your life. And here's the thing, forgiveness isn't something that just happens one day all of a sudden. It can to some people about some things, but for the most part, it's a practice. You'll get through one layer and be like, okay, I've moved on. And then another trigger will come up. And when you sit with that feeling, you're like, oh, this reminds me of that time I didn't walk away. And there it is. You have to heal it all over again. But at some point, you will get to the bottom and a trigger will happen and you will no longer have that feeling. And that's how you know you've truly forgiven both the other person and yourself. So let's get into it. There's a psychological reason people hold on to resentment, to anger, to pain. And because for a lot of people, it feels like if I forgive this person, that means I forget that it happened. It means that I'm okay with it. It means that I deserved what happened to me. And none of those things are true. Forgiving somebody is not the same as saying, I agree with what happened. We have to accept it because we cannot change it. That's what radical acceptance is. Acceptance is saying, I don't agree with this thing, but it happened and I cannot change it. Because so much suffering comes from trying to change the way things were. We cannot go back in time. We can't go into the future. The only thing we can do is use what we learned about the past to make different decisions in the present. And if you have not forgiven yourself, if you have not forgiven the other person, you may act very strongly towards that trigger again in a new person, in a new situation, projecting the past onto the present, which creates a loop. But when you've forgiven and you can look at it from a new way, you can have different outcomes based on the present situation and not the pain that you are carrying from the past. If you forgive somebody, it's not saying that they got away with it, I deserved it. It's saying that I no longer give that person the power to change the way that I feel in the present. It is the ability to say, I understand that we all act from our pain and our trauma. We would not yell at a wild, wounded animal for biting us. But when a harmed or hurt person hurts us, we tend to hold on to that like they betrayed us, they did something wrong. But they are simply acting out their own pain. The only way to heal is to forgive them. And you don't even have to do that in the physical world. You don't ever have to see this person again. If somebody really, really hurt you in a way that you never want to see them again, you don't have to. Forgiveness doesn't mean allowing them back into your life. Forgiveness means letting those feelings be there and saying, I no longer let this have control over my life, and releasing it a little bit, time and time again. And a really good way to get all of those feelings, because if they're really heavy, really dark, a lot of anger keeps coming up. That's telling you a boundary's been crossed. That's information. But if it doesn't flow, it will get stuck. And if it gets stuck, it's hurting us. It's not hurting the other person. So one thing I really like to do is write letters that you never send. You write a letter with literally everything you want to say. I don't want you to edit it. I don't want you to think, oh, I don't actually mean that. I don't want you to think I don't want anybody to see it. I want you to write everything that you've wanted to say to this person, everything that you feel like they've done to you, everything you feel like they've wronged you for. Write it. Write it as angry and as vile and as vicious as you need to, and let it all out. And then when you're done, burn the letter, because burning is alchemization. You are alchemizing it. You are turning that pain into whatever needs to come next. And I will tell you, as somebody who experienced years of abuse, it took writing that letter 10 times and burning it. But eventually the letter became less angry. Eventually, without even trying, the letter became, I went through so much and I forgive you. But forgiving myself took longer, and we'll talk about that. Understanding that people who are hurt us is not the same as excusing their behavior. And this is a really big, important step in healing, right? So it's looking back at that behavior and saying, I tolerated that in the past and I would never accept it again. And that's a really important part of forgiveness, because when you forgive, when you analyze it, when you write it down, when you look at it and you say, okay, I forgive that this person did this to me, but next time I see that red flag behavior, I'm out. And that is why you need to process these emotions and look at it and become aware of it, so that if you do see those signals again, you give, perhaps if you want to give this person a chance, you sit down and you say, hey, this is a red flag for me, this is why. Or you just walk away. It really depends on you, but you have the awareness now, because you've worked through those emotions and you've looked at this objectively, that you have the ability to say, I'm not willing to tolerate this again. No matter what it was that hurt you, you do not have to turn somebody into a monster in your mind to justify leaving them. If they crossed a boundary that you know is a boundary, then you have the right to leave. You don't have to explain it to them. You don't have to explain it to anybody else. If it is something that you have decided is non-negotiable, you can say, this was fun. This was what it needed to be. I'm moving on. You also don't have to turn somebody into a good person in your mind to forgive them. Maybe they changed, maybe they don't. Perhaps you've cut them out of your life entirely and you will never know. But you are taking back your power and saying, this situation, this person no longer has power over me. I forgive them and I am letting them go. And when you do that, and the better you get at that, the better you are able to see everybody through this mirror of, that person did something that hurt me because they are hurt, right? It's not that they are a bad, evil person. It's that they had trauma done onto them. They didn't heal. Now they're reflecting that back onto me. I forgive them, but they don't get in my life anymore. And you get much better at discerning what you are willing to accept. But that only comes through awareness, forgiveness, and the ability to stay discerning in your relationships, in your situations, and not looking at red flags as, oh, maybe this is different. If your intuition tells you it's the same, if your memory tells you it's the same, know when to walk away, but know that it's not that you're giving up. It's not that this person is a bad person. It's just that you've done this story. You've moved past this, and then you can move on now. So now I want to talk about why it's so hard to forgive yourself. This is something I really struggled with. I found that as I wrote those letters and had moved toward forgiveness, this anger was still there, and I came to realize it wasn't towards the other person, it was towards myself. And so the question kept coming up, why did I stay? Why did I accept this behavior? And there was a lot of grief. Okay, it wasn't just anger, it was grief for time that I felt like was lost, for lost opportunities, for times that I could have traveled the world and stayed really small because it kept somebody else comfortable. And when you heal, you look back and you go, I would never tolerate that now. That's growth. But you must also forgive the version of yourself that did what it needed to do to survive. I was essentially mentally a child. You know, it is believed that your brain isn't done developing until around your Saturn return, your first Saturn return around 28. They thought it was 25, but it's actually closer to 28. And so I think anything before 28, especially in your early 20s, you're still a child mentally. You know, you have some more of that development, but you don't have a lot of discernment. And a lot of times we don't have a lot of experience. And so we're really hard on ourselves for the things we did in our 18, 19, 20, 21. We stay in these toxic relationships. But what blueprint do we have? We're blaming ourselves when a lot of the times in our family life, there was no model of a healthy relationship, right? We didn't see what a healthy relationship looked like. We didn't see what true love looked like. And so when we got anything that we thought was close to a healthy relationship or even a relationship, we stayed. That doesn't mean there's some fault or flaw with us, but it is so much easier to look at yourself and go, well, what's wrong with you? Why did you stay? You say you deserve better. But I would like you to challenge those thoughts and to sit with the grief and the pain and the anger, whatever the feelings are, to let them flow through you, but to also write letters to your past self, not with those angry emotions, but with a lens of a parent, of a loving parent who sees a child doing something silly, but was a lesson they needed to learn. And sometimes we learn the lesson over and over and over again, and it doesn't stick until we go, the only common denominator here is me. That's taking radical responsibility. That's not saying that I'm at fault. It's saying that something about me and what I choose to accept brings these people into my life. Why? It's taking a really serious look at yourself and then saying, I am not at fault for what has happened to me, but I am now responsible because I am aware of it to change it. So you look back at that past version of yourself through a loving lens and you write this letter from your current or your future self to your past self, saying that you deserved better, and I love you and I support you, and I forgive you for doing what you needed to do to survive, no matter what it was, because no amount of anger and animosity and regret towards the past can ever change it, ever. And the more deeply you hold on to that resentment, it is keeping you stuck in the past. But there is no way to change the future if we are continuously projecting those past feelings, thoughts, beliefs, and actions onto the future through our present. Because if we are not aware that we can be different, we aren't going to be different. It may feel like you need to punish yourself for what you've said, what you've done, what you've accepted, but you don't. You've punished yourself enough. It's time to forgive yourself. It's time to understand that everything happened exactly as it had to, not just because of this lifetime, but because of past lifetimes of things that we can't even understand. Everything is in motion in such a way that every point that exists happens because of things that don't seem to have anything to do with us. That's the butterfly effect. The single change can change the cascade of everything. But until we come to the present moment and realize that we have the control over ourselves right now, we will get stuck in the past and we will get anxious about the future. And there's a lot of this feeling of, I should have known better. You know, should is typically attached to shame. And that is actually the lowest vibrational state you could possibly be in, is shame. And dealing with that toxic shame is something for a different video, which I will get all into because it is one of the most crucial things to heal. But if you hear yourself saying, I should have, you can identify that and say, this is shame. And one of the things I like to do is butterfly tapping. Even though I feel ashamed and sad, I deeply love and forgive myself. Even though I've done things in the past that I'm not proud of, I am a human being worthy of love, because two things can exist at the same time. And that's part of the forgiveness process. And here's the thing, when I was in that abusive relationship, I knew, especially in the middle towards the end, that I needed to get out. But knowing something intellectually is not the same as being able to do it emotionally or in the reality. The reality was I was still in school and a 1-bedroom apartment was $1,200 a month. And that wasn't feasible for me at that time. And that's not making excuses, because I truly believe if you want to do something, the assets will become available. But I didn't have that knowledge back then. I thought that what I was in was love, because I had never had a different model. And I had to let myself grieve and feel all of the emotions in order to forgive myself, in order to say, I deserve better. I will never accept treatment like that again. And yet, if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't know what I deserve. You don't have to pretend like every single decision you've made was a good decision. It's not. But you don't have to feel regret for the things that you wouldn't do now, because they are lessons. You can say, that was a bad decision and I understand why I made it. Or even if you didn't necessarily understand, you can say, that was a bad decision and I accept that I made it. Doesn't mean that you agree with the decision. You accept it because you cannot change it. And that is one of the biggest parts of forgiveness. It is accepting what we cannot change and letting go of it. Because the harder we hold on to something, the more that it hurts us. We cannot change any aspect of the past by regretting it. All that we can do is look at it objectively, feeling the feelings, but then looking back and going, this is what I will never accept again because I deserve better. And forgiveness is getting to that place where you do deserve better because you do love and accept yourself. You do love and accept the version of yourself that did crazy, silly, goofy things and got you to this current moment where every potential reality exists when you become aware. And really, that's the reason why self-forgiveness is so much harder, right? There are layers to all of this. When you get through one layer, there's going to be a deeper layer and a deeper layer. And it comes back to maybe this current relationship reminds you of the interactions you had with your parents as a child. And you couldn't get out of that because you were a child, but you felt so at fault for everything that was happening. That's the deeper work that needs to happen. That's the thing that you come to realize is these patterns we repeat are learned in childhood. And until we heal that core and forgive ourselves and our parents because they are just perpetuating the same thing that was done onto them. That's what intergenerational trauma is. And in order to truly heal from it, you have to forgive them. But that doesn't mean accepting it. It doesn't mean going, yeah, that was okay. It wasn't okay, but I understand that they didn't know any better. And then you can also put that on yourself. I don't like what I did, but I didn't know any better. And so a lot of the times when you're doing this work, you have this feeling of, I hate myself. I should have known better. I should have done better. But what that actually is grief. When you sit down, a lot of people don't actually know how to grieve. And I will be making a training on how to grieve. And it sounds very silly, right? You just cry. No, grief is a wave, is a pattern. You go through these stages of grief. And we think of grieving, the loss of somebody in our life, some major event, a fire, something. There are so many things to grieve in our lives that we never even had to begin with. If you grew up in a chaotic home, if you grew up neglected or abused, you deserve to grieve the fact that you didn't have loving, consistent, affectionate, emotionally there for you parents. And how many of us are taught that it's okay to grieve that? And so a lot of this self-hatred and I don't deserve better and how could I and this regret is actually grief. It's tied to grief. And so learning how to grieve properly is a major aspect that is necessary. And grieving allows you to show yourself that you are growing and changing because you can look at what happened and say, that wasn't okay. I survived it. I deserved better. I will never accept it again. And you let that grief come as much as it needs to. And you grieve in whatever way that you need to. The best way to know that you are truly forgiving yourself is by becoming somebody that you can trust, that your inner children, that your parts can trust. That is the biggest step and the biggest part of this forgiveness that is necessary to know that I will never tolerate this again and to know if those behaviors show up that you can trust yourself enough to walk away. Because the second you make space, the second you show the universe that you are different, things will change. But things will not change if you keep doing the same activities and beliefs. And if you are stuck in grief, if you are stuck in shame, if you are stuck in resentment, if you are stuck in anger, those things will keep coming up because they are lessons. And you learn that every time you set a boundary now, you are forgiving the version of yourself who couldn't. Every time you walk away from something you don't deserve and choose yourself, you are healing the version of yourself who couldn't. Every time you stay consistent in your beliefs and not allowing the external to influence you, you are repairing something deep within. You are repairing the relationship with yourself. You are learning that you can trust yourself. You are teaching yourself that you are worthy of love. And every single time you do this, you get more discerning, you get better at it, you grieve faster, you forgive faster, you feel more deeply, but you don't suffer as much because pain is not the same as suffering. Feeling the pain and letting it go is not the same as something bad happens and then you cling to it because it becomes part of the story that you tell yourself about who you are in your life. But when you forgive that, you realize that you can choose. And that choice is freedom. So to actually practice forgiveness in a very sort of step-by-step way, it's looking at every single person that has ever hurt you, including yourself. It's being very honest about what actually happened. Not getting stuck in all of the thoughts or the should-haves or I could have. Being honest and telling the truth about what happened. It's about letting yourself feel what it cost you. Really feel all of the emotions associated. This takes a lot of time. It's not something that you need to do all at once. things that will come out. And sometimes it doesn't come out till a trigger happens, but you will learn how to feel those feelings and feel what staying in those relationships or staying in those situations cost you. It's understanding why it happened. Maybe we don't know the exact reason, but maybe we can say that we were too young to know better, or there was nobody there to protect us, or we were simply reenacting what we learned in childhood. It's giving it a reason that is not shame or guilt. It's not pointing the finger at somebody else and saying they're bad. And it's not pointing the finger at ourselves and saying we're bad. We're saying that this happened because I didn't know better, or because they didn't know better. It's then looking at this and deciding what you want to carry forward from this. Maybe you learned that you will never tolerate any sort of yelling ever again. And if somebody yells in a relationship with you, you say, if there is any more yelling, I will walk away because this is a boundary for me. And then the most important thing is that follow through. That person yells at you again. There is no yelling. There is no screaming. There is no begging them to change. You walk away because you trust yourself, because you've forgiven yourself, because you've learned from the past. And you take that with you into the future, into the present moment, and making the decisions you want to make. And then for the rest, it is a process of repeatedly releasing it, of forgiving them, of praying for them, of sending them love, understanding that all living beings want love. All living beings want peace. Everyone deserves love and peace and happiness and joy, everything. And that is a very advanced stage of this forgiveness, because you will go through parts where you want to see these people suffer, and that's okay. You should not shame yourself for anything that you feel during this process, understanding it is a process and you will eventually get to the place where you have let it all go. And that's what freedom is. Nothing from your past has control over you anymore. Nobody's anger or shame or guilt, anything that they try to throw onto you can impact you anymore, because you've healed those wounds, because you've forgiven yourself and you've forgiven others. And then in the moment when that happens again, you can see it. Oh, this person is acting out of their pain. I deserve better than this, and I forgive them. And it will get that easy, but it is a process. And as you learn to do this, you learn to forgive everything and everyone in your life, and you become detached from the past in a way that you've learned from it, but it doesn't have control over you anymore. And this is a process that does need to be repeated. So things will continue to happen in your life, but it comes down to, do you hold on to it? Do you cling to it the way that you used to? Or do you see that this person upset me? I got upset about this person. This person did something that I considered to be offensive or harmful against me, and you still choose to forgive them. It's not, I don't care. It's, I choose myself and my peace. I can remember this without it hurting me. I can choose myself in any situation that I need to. And that's the beautiful thing, is that as you learn to forgive yourself and others, you do become free from the pains of the past. And so if you want to learn more about how to grieve, how to feel these emotions, how to write these letters, how to look at this without getting sucked back into it, I encourage you to like this video, to follow, to comment, to let me know what you want to hear next, because on this journey, we understand that there are times where we make big strides forward and then feel like we slip backwards. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. But learning how to feel your emotions, learning how to grieve, learning how to forgive is the step that's missing from a lot of manifestation work, because if you are still stuck in the past and feeling a lot of pain, you aren't going to be able to be present. I love you so much, and I will see you next time.